Hello again, Whiskey Freaks. Welcome to Beastmasters Club Podcast. I am Steve.
And I'm Ben.
Welcome. Today we're bringing you part two of, by far the favorite podcast that we've ever done, in my opinion.
Our barrel picking with Eddie Russell from Wild Turkey.
Yeah, so last time we dropped the sort of actual barrel picking process, but we sat there with him for another 2 hours just talking shit.
Yeah, hanging out, tasting different barrels, and then after I think I asked him possibly
500 times.
Yeah, northward of 40 literal times about getting us a rye barrel, which they no longer do private barrels of. He led us over to a cask that I believe his son Bruce had stashed away. Bruce is a big rye fan, and he let us taste one of their single barrels of rye. I think he said it was the oldest of Wild Turkey.
He claimed it was the oldest barrel of rye out of his 700,000. I did not buy that for a second.
Right, yeah. I think he said 9 years old. They don't really keep any around past that, but I got to figure they got some stashed away somewhere there.
Yeah. It's like, is this the biggest gold bar you have here? You're like, yeah, that's the biggest one. Uh-huh. Sure. We don't have a 500-pound like golden stallion hidden in the back. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, there's no giant statues of gods made of solid gold. We don't do that.
But it was a really cool time. And then as we were drinking it, that was when we were into our cups a little bit, and he started telling us all these great stories about Bucker No and Beam and Jimmy dad, and oh man, what a fun time.
A lot of history of Wild Turkey in this one. Just going through what has evolved and changed over the years and how they've kind of come to be doing what they're doing now, and some really cool stuff about just how Jimmy stuck to his guns. How his father, Jimmy Russell, really stuck to his guns and refused to change what they were doing at Wild Turkey and how they make whiskey and what they wanted to sell. And so they never really shifted when whiskey wasn't so popular. So they remained like the kind of main, like, I don't know, flagship bourbon producer. Even though they were a large producer, they still just kept it old school.
Anyway, it was a really great time. Before we get into it, I just want to say, for the record, we had our battle, Beast vs. Warrior 2, last time. I hope you guys all tuned in.
Oh, yeah.
And Jake the Warrior brought Redemption Barrel Proof Rye. And the contest was ryes under 100. And I thought that seemed a little sketchy. Jake claimed that they were readily available for $80. I went online. I Googled the shit out of it, and I could not find a single bottle of Redemption Rye for under like $115. So
okay, so they're a little out of the... Either way, it didn't win.
It did not win, so I don't have to like do a formal appeal to the commission. But I feel even more victorious. It was right on the line. It was tied up, and I feel like he was trying to pull the wool over our eyes on that one. Maybe he bought it for $100 like 2 years ago, or for $80.
It's quite possible.
Anyway,
right now it's well over $100.
Just wanted to point that out. Nice try, Jake.
Without Jake here to defend himself, I'll just say we'll take it under advisement. We'll have to do our own Googling and just check your math.
Well, enough yakking. Before we get into it again, we got, what do we have news? Wild Four Roses barrel on the way.
Four Roses barrel coming up.
Must have been the Roses.
Must have been the Roses is probably on its way to us right now. Hopefully we're going to get it in the first week of August. Yeah. But we will let you all know as soon as it comes in. And it'll be in the shop. OBSV
delicious.
High Rye.
Yep, Al Young helped us pick that out. And we're going to release the barrel picking with Al Young in the podcast shortly after that. So stay tuned for that. It was a really fun conversation. It's Al's 50th anniversary as at Four Roses as distillery manager. He had his own Al Young pick come out this year and helped us to pick this awesome barrel. So I thought that was a fantastic time.
It's a great podcast, and hopefully you guys will be able to buy your Four Roses bottle of the barrel that we picked and then listen along with us to talking about the pick with Al Young.
Mm-hmm. And if anybody has any suggestions for more barrels, more topics for the battles, we're going to start the events going again this fall. So please give us a peep and
let us know. Beastmastersclub.com. You can reach us through the website. info@beastmastersclub.com will get you directly to us via email. We're not hard to find, so don't be shy. And hopefully you enjoy this cast with Eddie Russell.
Eddie Russell Part 2. Talk to you later.
Beastmasters Club, experiencing the world's finest whiskey, one bottle at a time.
Rye was the first thing made in America. And then bourbon started. Rye basically just died completely out. So in 2009, there was 87,000 cases of rye sold in the whole world. So it was basically Wild Turkey 101 rye, Jim Beam rye, and Old Overhaul.
Right.
You could find a little Rittenhouse every now and then. You could find Sazerac, especially if you're in Louisiana, but very much anywhere else. Last year there was over 500,000 cases of rye sold.
Wow.
It's called fire.
So if you look at my father, he's been making rye since 1954. We always had Wild Turkey 101 rye. My father has drank 0 drinks of rye in his whole life.
Huh.
He's a bourbon
Guy.
guy. So me, I come along. I love bourbon. I love a good drink with rye in it. And then I found out that when you taste rye straight out of the barrel, it's fantastic. So I have a 27-year-old son that thinks our rye is the best thing we make.
Sure.
So he has one barrel that he thinks the best barrel here. So we're going to drink out of it.
Oh yeah. Sorry, Briss.
So this will be 9 years old, April the 7th. So it's right at 9 years old. It's about 110.2 proof right out of the barrel. But this is a single barrel rye.
And what's your son's name?
Bruce.
Bruce. All right.
What's the oldest rye you have in the
So this is it.
700,000? Oh, this is
This
the oldest
is it,
one.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
We had one of your ryes last night. We were drinking what was it, liquor barn?
Liquor Barn
Single
private
barrel.
barrel. Yeah.
So yeah, so I
And-
did a thing with them. They came in. They had a 3-pack that they did. Plus they sold some others. But Bruce actually picked those 3 ryes. I picked the 3 Russells, and Jimmy picked the 3 Kentucky Spirits.
Nice.
Interesting, yeah.
That's great.
So this is, if you're talking to the government, this is a casualty. It's empty.
Yeah.
Everything leaked out.
This one fell off the back of the truck.
Now without a subpoena. Get in there, boys and gal.
I mean, I love bourbon, but to me, rye is the best.
Yeah.
Look at the color on that.
That is, everything is right with this.
So if you look back at the history, even when my dad started,
Oh my God.
Just gonna stand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Oh my
it's
God.
like
Holy shiznot of the Midwest.
it's like when
like
he
it. I like it.
started.
Dan,
It's sort of
nicely done.
like bourbon. A lot of people still
my
think
God.
bourbon can only come from Kentucky, and all the good bourbon does come from Kentucky, but it can be made anywhere. But when he started, ryes were in Pennsylvania and Maryland.
Yep.
So Pennsylvania was what you're seeing on a lot of the ryes nowadays with the Bullets, all those guys. They come from Lawrenceburg, Indiana. So they're 95% rye, 5% malt. Or there's some that do 100%. The Maryland recipes had some corn in them. So ours is the Maryland recipe. So we do a certain percentage of rye, but we still put malts and corn in ours. Sort of rounds out those edges.
They say it's the liquor that started the USA. This is
It was.
what the
It
founders
was,
drank.
yeah.
George
Is,
Washington distilled
is-
rye.
So
Like,
that
That is pretty fucking
That
good.
is
is Bruce
delicious.
firmly like planted in the family business?
He is. He lives in Austin, Texas right now.
oh man,
So
hello.
We heard
I don't
we heard that
know.
about that in the video. Yeah.
So Bruce was on the video, definitely. But I'll give you a little example. So this is the difference between son and grandson. So I had a year of college left, and I thought I would just take the summer off. And my mother, who is still the boss,
Always, yeah.
told my dad to give him a job. So my dad at that time was plant manager, master distiller, human resources, union negotiator. That's where they all were back in those days.
Sure,
And
the man in charge.
I came here to work. He put me bottom man in the union.
Mm-hmm.
So I rode barrels. Actually, the first day I worked was in this warehouse, June the 5th of 1981.
Wow.
I dumped bottles out of cases because back then they would send you the bottles upside down in cases, sterilized, and you dumped them out on what they called an unscrambler to be filled. That part was easier than stacking the full cases, but we liked stacking the cases because there wasn't a supervisor down there.
Right.
So you stack cases. I mowed grass. I painted buildings. I did all that stuff. And I stayed in the union for about 5 years, and then Jimmy brought me in the distillery to teach me how to make the whiskey, make the yeast, all that stuff. And then I took over the maturation end, which is the age and picking out for our whiskeys. I've done balling, I've done maintenance. So my son comes along, and he worked for us as a tour guide while he was going to college. So when he got out of college, of course, our company wanted him to sort of come in. He's like, yeah, but he said, I don't want to live in this little small town, which was the same thing I thought. So instead of starting him bottom man in the union, Jimmy gave him a credit card and sent him to Austin, Texas.
Grandpa, I got to
So that's the difference in son and grandson.
Yeah.
So he actually lives in Austin, Texas. Within the next year or so, he's going to move back and get his hands dirty. He can't do what I did because when it's union, you can't be union and company.
What is the union? Which union is it?
It is the same union as Kroger nowadays. It used to be like an auto union. UAW.
UAW.
Yeah, something like that. But now it's the same union as the Krogers.
Right.
But most distilleries are union because back in the day, I can remember they started the union here in 71 because all these were family owned.
Right.
So, like, if you were the owner and you had some friend that had a son that needed a job, he got the best job in the plant.
Sure.
So that's what sort of brought the unions in.
Right.
But for me, I started in that union and was happy to do it. I mean, I was
Right.
making $6.58 an hour. It was
That's a
big
lot.
money
Awesome.
back in
Yeah.
1981.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And it's cool to just be able to learn the whole business from the
Well,
ground up
I
and see
thought
every little
I
piece
thought
and
my
part.
dad was a big a-hole for doing that because I thought I should have a desk job back, a
Right.
nice secretary, whatever. But it was the best thing he could ever done for
I was
me.
gonna say, but now you. Look
Oh
back
yeah,
on it,
I mean the employees respect me so much more because I've done everything they could do.
Yeah, and you know everything.
Plus,
back
I
to front.
learned everything from the time the grains come in the door to building the stills to everything. So, yeah, he knew what he was doing. I just didn't understand that.
Sure.
At 21, I was like, I want a cool job, not rolling barrels. But so that's how I learned it. That's how Freddie Noe learned it. That's how Craig Beam learned it. So I've known Freddie Noe since we were kids. We were WFO. You know
Yeah.
what WFO means?
No.
White fuck. When we were teenagers, because our dads had plenty of bourbon.
Yep.
We loved ZZ Top, so we used to go to a lot of ZZ Top.
We just saw them this
just
week.
were at the
We just saw them
concert.
this week. They're great.
So we used to go to a lot of their concerts.
Nice.
And I grew up around them when I started working here at 21. Freddie really fought it. And I'm like, I fought a little bit, and then I realized they're going to pay me to drink bourbon. So I figured out pretty quick it was going to be okay. But one of the first times Booker come out here after I started working here, we were sitting over in my dad's office, and they had went to the distillery and they'd tasted whiskey right off the still. They sitting in his office and they were tasting 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 6-year-old. I mean, they drink enough whiskey to kill most people.
Right.
At that time, my dad wore a suit and tie to work every day. Up until probably mid-2000s, my dad suit and tie every day. I'm like, I own no ties. I don't even want to put on a jacket too often,
Yeah.
So we were sitting in the office, and they'd brought the guy that used to do most of our stainless steel welding. He was like falling out of his seat. And my dad and Booker were sitting there, and Booker's got jeans on, this T-shirt. He's up there, and he's like, Jimmy. And I won't say whose whiskey, but it was one of their buddies who had changed their stills and had changed sort of the way they're making their whiskey. And he said, Booker was 6'5", 300 pounds, huge man. And he looked at my dad and he said, Jimmy, by God, what'd you think about so-and-so's whiskey? And Jimmy's like, it's pretty good. He said, you lying son of a bitch, it ain't worth a damn. And I'm like 22 years old, and I'm like, wow. My dad just starts laughing. That's how close of friends they were.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
Amazing.
It's a cool community. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Great thing
Yeah,
to be a part of.
legends.
Yeah, you're next in line in the whole tradition, which is amazing. And now your son's gonna get to
Yeah, so I'm going to retire, and my son and Jimmy are going to run the place.
That
That's
sounds
what
like a
he
good
tells
plan.
everybody.
I think that's a good plan.
Yeah,
Well, I
he.
think Bruce has got something going because this is.
This is
So my dad doesn't like this at all.
It made,
Good. You can sell it to us. We'll buy it.
Does he ever
So I'm
drink-
working on that.
There's a market
Does
for
he
it.
ever drink rye or only to
Yeah,
taste
this
it?
is how many drinks of rye Jimmy's ever drank.
Zero.
You won't even
Zero.
taste it. You won't even taste this barrel.
he told us he's like single cube in the summer, in the fridge. He gave us the whole. He gave, like,
Yeah,
what
but
are you
didn't he say?
Well, you
like,
know,
oh,
like-
I like ride this. You know, in this
He
age,
goes
or-
into a city. The first thing my
like
dad's
it's well-
going to do is taste the water.
Just the water.
If it's
Salt the
not
water,
good,
yeah.
he's drinking it neat.
You know, we have,
Right. Don't want to put ice in
If
there.
the water's good, he's going to put a couple ice cubes. That's how we sort of like. We like a couple ice cubes.
we have great water in New York.
He asked
do.
for it. He
Spring
said
water.
one. He said 1 cube.
I'm not
the small
even
one.
a big pizza guy, but when I go to New York, I'm eating pizza.
That's the only place.
It is.
Because of water.
Pizza,
Any
bagels,
guy will tell you
Pizza
that.
and bagels. That's the
Yeah,
only.
the
that's
bagels,
how you
bagels
gotta
and
do it.
pizza.
Bagels, what's hard for us
Next
Kentucky
time-
boys.
Next time
Pizza I can get.
Bagels just bread.
Is there a
It's
bagel
just
shop
bread.
down here in
I'm sure there is. Yeah.
So can I ask you about
Louisville
the
bagels?
Kentucky, we
technology
fry
part?
you.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you about the technology. Like when we did the tour and we saw like the room that you guys do all the samples in, instruments in there, science, technology clearly in there. How's that changed over
So
the time?
for
you've
me,
been here?
great. So that distillery started December 2010. We were probably 10 years behind everybody else. Our distillery sat right here, and everything was hand done. If you started a mash, you walked down the steps, you opened a water valve. You opened a thin slot valve.
No controllers.
You opened a steam valve. You went upstairs. When it got to a certain level, you went back down there and closed all those valves. For me, and I love that we have Jimmy, me, and Bruce.
That's awesome.
Where Bruce thinks this is the best whiskey we make. I
won't even
wouldn't
taste
say
it.
that. I think it's right up there. Jimmy's like, you're fired. So I love that we have that. But for me, that new distillery, I think we're a lot more consistent. I think back in those days we were a little rough around the edges. And I'll have people come up to me constantly and say, you know, the 1970s and 80s Wild Turkey is better than it is now today. And I'm like, well, you weren't drinking it in the 70s and 80s because our industry was doing this.
Yeah.
But back in those days, we had excess whiskey. So if we were doing Wild Turkey 8-year-old, it was probably 10 years old. If it was 12 years old, it was probably 13 or 14 years old. So to me, that made it better.
That's the difference.
Where now, I'm pushing right at 7.5, 8 years old on my 101.
Do you ever go back and like taste the stuff from the 70s?
Oh, yeah, I've got a little, yeah.
You got a stash. Some handles.
I didn't say that out loud.
I'm surprised with 700,000.
I have no older whiskey.
With 700,000 barrels. I'm surprised you don't have
to my house.
I'm not sure about
Stay away,
Bruce's taste.
please.
I may need a little another sip of that.
I was gonna say with 700,000 barrels, I'm surprised you didn't stick a rye away for 20,
got
25 years, something like that.
I just don't think it would be good. I don't even want bourbon at 25 or 20 or
much.
25 years.
Too
Let's
oaky,
rye.
too woody.
Yeah, it gets bitter, it gets oaky, it gets dry.
I don't know.
As my dad would say, grab a piece of wood and chew on it.
Some of them do.
But
some
so
of
do you
them
think
don't.
like targeting that barrel
Yeah.
to say like put that barrel in the spot where you know it ages the slowest, so to speak?
So yeah, so anything that I determine that maybe I want to do a LTO like Decades or Master's Keep or anything like that, after 12 or 13 years, yeah, I'm moving it down here to slow that aging process down.
Tell you what, take one barrel of rye, put it in the top shelf for the next 15 years. I'll come back. If it sucks, I'll take it.
So call Bruce. I'll be retired.
But hang on a second. You just said rye though, not
Rye.
You said again. There's a difference between the rye and the
I
bourbon.
love rye.
In terms of
Yeah.
aging.
I think rye on the aging
rye
is
on
better.
the aging is better
Yeah.
than the bourbon.
So-
because to me, I
So the
agree.
guys that make it think just the opposite.
Really?
So Jimmy, if you talk to him, 7 to 12 years on bourbon. That's it.
bourbon.
That's what he
bourbon,
said.
yes.
And he
Rye.
doesn't rye at all.
What he
Rye.
said, he said like 5 to 7 on the rye.
I think rye could
Yeah,
go
but he's
on.
Never tasted a rye,
he's
so
like-
now we
I
know
that's
that.
He's tasted. He's never
That's
drank
what's shocking me.
that. So for
Oh,
me,
he's tasted it and I
for
drank
me, I think 10 years old is the beginning of perfect bourbon, and I think up to 15 years old is really good. Now you get older than that, I'm not big on it.
I have a question.
Rye, I think 6 to that 10 years is, I mean, that's right at 9 years old.
Well,
How much more perfection do you need?
Not much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
We're going
splitting
tomorrow.
hairs at
Either
that
when
point.
we were on like the bus ride over or whatever it was, I think you were saying you're not thinking about what 2018 is like. You're thinking about what 2025
30.
is.
Yeah.
30, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So like in 1985, you know, when
1985, I didn't care about anything. Having a good time.
maybe
I was
1990.
25.
Yeah, you were still really young,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Well, like, were you saying to yourself like, what the fuck? Why isn't like we're making some amazing shit? Why is
Well,
nobody
you had your
digging
company
this?
saying, why do we need to make this amount of whiskey? And you're like, it's coming, you know.
It's delicious.
You know, it's delicious. It's
gonna catch
coming.
on.
But, you know, when we started out as the Rippey family, then there was a couple guys out of Cincinnati called the Ghouls that bought this place. JTS Brown was one of their big brands at that time. And we were making whiskey for Austin Nichols,
Right.
which was Wild Turkey.
Well, that was the brand. Austin Nichols.
So
Wild
Austin
Turkey.
Nichols and our headquarters were in New York. I think it's 46 in Lexington. They own their own building. So they were a big wholesaler of food and spirits out of Brooklyn, New York. And they were having us make this whiskey for them. And up until about 1970, we bottled some here, but we actually sent tankers up to Brooklyn and they bottled some of it up there.
Wow.
In 1970, Liggett Group, which was a big tobacco company out of North Carolina, bought Austin Nichols and this distillery because they thought this was the brand that should be made. And they cut the JTS Brown off, they cut everything else off, and they said, we're only making Wild Turkey. And then about 1980, there was actually a hostile takeover of Liggett Group by a company that was part of Diageo. And I can't remember. There's about 5 different companies that formed Diageo, which is the biggest spirits producer in the world.
Oh yeah.
And they actually handed off our company to Pernod Ricard. So Pernod Ricard owned us from 1980 up until 2009. And then Campari bought us.
What a
So-
tangled web we
Yeah.
weave.
As you said it, I was picturing that Austin Nichols, like white on red on the
well, it's
bottle.
always
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
Austin Nichols Wild.
So if you
Turkey.
ever find any pre-1970 Wild Turkey, it actually has a beautiful painted turkey on the bottle. I don't remember that because I was in high school, or grade school, or something, and having a good time. But I've had people send me those. I mean, I can't.
pictures of the bottles.
My problem is Jimmy never saved any bottles
Right.
because if it was good, we're drinking it.
Yeah, sure.
So I've tried to save back bottles since I've been here. So I have a few older bottles, but like one of my favorite things we've ever made here is Cheesy Go Full 12.
Oh, that's so
Yes.
good. Yeah.
Everybody chases that down.
And like I said, at that time it was probably 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
I have 0 bottles of that.
Wow. Yeah.
But if you pull one out, I'm drinking with you.
Sure.
You know,
We'll bring one next time.
Yeah.
We'll get you
Change it for a
one.
barrel
Next
rye.
time we come down, we'll bring one.
it's
with us.
amazing that they're still out there to me.
You can find them.
You know.
When
We
was
have-
your
we-
first taste of bourbon? What was
6
your-
months.
6 months?
They put it on
Rub
your
it on your
gums.
gums.
when
Set
you're
up on the
teething.
gums, yeah.
So Jimmy was probably holding me with a drink in one hand, me in the other, and I'm crying because I'm teething.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's rubbing it on my gums.
And,
All right.
and what is the your mother's favorite whiskey?
So my mother wasn't a big drinker, so Jimmy actually introduced Wild Turkey Honey Liqueur in 1976.
No.
Oh,
that's
really? I
Really
didn't know
that?
that at all.
that's
So
the-
that was the
Really
first.
ahead of the curve.
That was the first honey flavored bourbon, 1976, and it was because my mom didn't really like bourbon.
Nice.
So my mom nowadays, if she's with Jimmy anywhere, she's 86, great woman, but if she goes in somewhere and they say, "What do you want to drink?" she'll say, "Give me a whiskey sour and be heavy on the sour."
tart.
Hey, no. You like what you like.
Respectable.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
nothing wrong
yeah,
with
he
whiskey
came
sour.
out with it was called Wild Turkey Honey Liqueur in 1976.
Right.
It was our 80 proof bourbon with some natural honey, cane sugar, and a few flavors.
Yeah, we just tasted that.
We just, yeah, there was
Well, that's
like
the
really
American
nice,
honey.
like citrus,
That-
like clove.
That
kind of thing
octagon
going on
bottle
there.
with a long neck on it. Yeah.
So, So what is the blend? They showed us the Japanese export only.
Yeah, we
What's
do a
that
lot of
about?
things for the Japanese.
Talk about the Japanese.
So Japanese, when they were always when 1981 when I came here, export was 6% of our business, and Japan was 5.5 of that 6% because the world was a very close place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Now it's about 35% of our business. Last year I visited Dublin, I visited Edinburgh, I visited Vienna, I visited Basel and Zurich, Switzerland. I visited Warsaw, Poland. They're all dying for bourbon. Who isn't? And it's the thing that I love. It's like Warsaw, Poland. That's vodka, and you're
Yeah, it's
like,
clear
they're
territory.
dying for bourbon. I'm
Clear
like,
territory.
yes.
Yeah.
I go
They've had
into
enough of it.
I go into Dublin, and I'm like, I'm in the heart of Jameson and all those brands, and these bartenders are like, we want bourbon, we want rye.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
I used to spend some time in Glasgow for work, and I went in there looking for some scotch, and it was like all bourbon. They're like,
Yep.
oh, here's our extensive
It's
bourbon list.
amazing, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Whoa.
really,
Yeah.
it's really neat
Europe,
for me. I mean, to see that.
Wine, Scotch, vodka. I mean, it doesn't exist for them. So
Well,
it's
you
like a
think
new,
about when I was
exciting thing.
younger than I am now. When I was 25 years old, if I walked into a bar and ordered 101 on the rocks, what do you think people thought? He's
Hillbilly.
going to rob this place or beat me up, one of the two.
Definitely thought that way.
People walked in and ordered a scotch. They sort of thought of them as a little sophisticated.
Yeah, James Bond or something.
Yeah, so now they walk into a bar and my son's ordering a Manhattan or Old Fashioned or Boulevardier, which is my favorite mixed drink,
Boulevardier, of course.
or even a Wild Turkey on the rocks. They look at him like he's a little more knowledgeable. He knows what he's doing. So times have changed.
Yep.
You know,
But you knew the product. You knew how good it was. Did you know this was coming?
Oh,
At
hell
one
no.
point, people are going to discover how the quality of
not
this.
really. I mean, I think my dad was one of the few people in the whole world. I mean, if you look at the Whiskey Advocate, there's several YouTube videos out there on the market that his 60th anniversary. Freddie No talks about him. Greg Davis from Maker's Mark talks about him. Lou Bryson from the Whiskey Advocate talks about him. And his quote was one of my favorites. It's like Jimmy Russell, as bourbon had sort of died out and it was lost, wandering around the wilderness, Jimmy Russell's like, nope, it's going this direction.
Right.
And
that's what I was saying
and that's, I'm talking about 20 years.
Yeah.
You're sitting here saying it's going in this direction. Most people would have said, I give up. Let's do this.
Yeah.
But Jimmy just stayed true to that. So
What's cool
for
about
me,
that also,
I didn't really think that way. I came here and I thought, Jimmy, we got to change. We've got to lower our proof. We got to lower our age. We got to make it lighter. And my dad's like, no.
That's what they did. Jack Daniels. They lowered it 40,
He's like, hold the course.
Yeah.
Hold the course.
80 proof.
well, and what has seemed to have happened is that the people caught on to the fact that there's a real craft going on here.
Yeah.
And that's what people fell in love with. They
Well, that's the
wanted that
thing about,
authenticity. They wanted
marketing
real.
became such a part of our
But
industry.
I love that your father's like, Jimmy's like, no. We're not going to artificially control the temperatures. We're going to leave the windows open, close the windows. We're just going to that's what we're doing. That's it.
Well,
We're
that's
like,
the thing about now is marketing became a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of brands out there that is totally a marketing story.
Yeah, right. Sure.
Wild Turkey is 100% true and accurate. And you've seen those stories come about where our story is completely true. So that's the thing about Jimmy, that even though I would never say it to him, so don't tell him, but he held true to what he believed in. I came here thinking college graduate, if you're standing still and everybody's going this way, you'll never catch up.
Yep.
And I'm like, Jimmy, we've got to change. Everybody was 100 proof, and they kept lowering the
That's where
proof.
wisdom
lowering that.
comes in, a little perspective, right? Just sitting back a
If
little.
if I was talking to him, I would say you're lucky.
Wisdom,
You're lucky.
Yeah.
But really, it
to a
was his
degree.
wisdom.
But
you
I understand that you should stick with what you got and not
Well,
try
for
to
my dad,
change.
to this day, he believed 100% in what he was doing. we're the only bourbon distillery that's never used GMO grains. He didn't even know what that meant.
Right.
Wow.
But he
He
knew it was
just
wrong.
like, I'm not changing what I've been doing.
Right.
He was taught by Mr. Bill Hughes, which was the second distiller ever here. He was a distiller before Prohibition and taught my dad as an older man. So I always relate things back to that. Because he was taught by him, so he wasn't changing it.
All right, so that was our chat with Eddie Russell from Wild Turkey.
Yeah, thanks
awesome.
again to everybody, Eddie and Teak and all the guys at Campari, and it was just such a phenomenal trip. So we're definitely coming back.
Amazing. And thank you guys for listening, supporting the podcast, supporting the Beastmasters Club. We'll be back soon with our Four Roses Barrel podcast with Al Young and some other stuff on the way.
Also, we've gotten so many letters about. I think you cut the end of the other Eddie Russell podcast with Dana. Like, is anybody else hungry? And like wanting to go to Skyline Chili.
Yeah, it was a perfect ending.
And we've gotten like tremendous praise on that. So thanks for all your notes. And we thought it was hilarious as well. So yeah, until next time.
Yeah, stay in
Beastmasters.
touch. Don't be strangers.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.